God bless you, brothers and sisters, and welcome to Godspeed Magazine Live. Right now in the Watchmen issue, we are looking into where God is moving. What about the Illuminati? What about the deep state? What about the total worldwide control of the mainstream media by a few corporations? What are we to do with all this? And again, where is God?
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely
Dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous.
Dangerous to our democracy.
dangerous.
extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Extremely
Dangerous to our democracy.
What if all isn't as it seems? What if the reality you found was false? A carefully constructed narrative by unseen special interests designed to manipulate your opinion.
God bless you, brothers and sisters. After seeing that montage, I imagine you're thinking, I hear all these kinds of things, deep state, Illuminati, biblical prophecy, Babylon, all these things, and I want a source. I want to see somebody who actually has the details and the facts. And praise God, that's exactly what we have for you right now, right here today. With me right now, I am so honored. We, Godspeed Magazine, are so honored to have Troy Anderson and Paul McGuire. Gentlemen, the first thing that I think we need to do to put this thing into some kind of context is, how did God draw you in to the background of this whole Antichrist movement all the way back to Babylon Code? How did God initially bring you into this topic?
Troy, you want to do it, or me, or what?
Yeah, sure. So, I was a reporter at the LA Daily News for many years, and I had heard about this prophecy conference at Calvary Chapel at Chino Hills. This was about a decade ago. And so I talked my editor into let me attend this. And I go there, and there's thousands of people there, Tim LaHaye, David Hawking, and Paul McGuire speaking. And I'm sitting in the audience taking notes, and I hear him say, "The world is undergoing the greatest transformation since the Tower of Babel, becoming global government, cashless society, and universal religion." And it just struck me at that moment that if this is true, this is a gigantic story. And I sort of flashed back to when I was 11 years old, and all these Jesus people in their VW vans had invaded my hometown in Oregon. And one of them was he trained under Hal Lindsey, author of The Late Great Planet Earth. It was a best-selling nonfiction book in the 1970s, and he gave me a copy of this book. And so when I was 11 years old, I sat on this sandy bluff overlooking the 101 at sunset and read this book in 2 nights. It just blew my mind. And shortly after that, I became a believer. So, and then here I am, 3 decades later, and I hear Paul McGuire saying everything that Lindsay wrote about 3 decades ago is now happening. So I introduced myself to him. We became friends and began this decade-long journey of investigating, are we really in the run-up to these end-time events predicted in the Bible?
And Paul, what would you say are for somebody who's looking at it from the outside, kind of going, I have no idea, what would you say are the kind of ultra markers, like the clearest, let's call it clear and present danger? This, what do you think are the largest markers, sort of the most obvious tips of mountains that people can see easily in these things coming about?
Well, first I want to respond by saying everything that we research, I was a skeptic on. I've been doing this 40 years or more, actually. And everything like Illuminati, you name a topic, a buzzword topic, I was really biased and skeptical against it. I really
me too.
thought when I did the research, it would be a bunch of, And to my shock, when I really researched it accurately, it wasn't just a figment of imagination. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. So I would have to say, and that's the reason I appreciate working with Troy, because his talents as an investigative reporter are so helpful in what we write. So I would have to say right now, the single greatest proof of a lot of this is the technology. Everything from the computer to the coming 5G to virtual reality to the singularity, artificial reality. But this entire technological drive, to me, is the greatest proof at the moment, because when you read the book of Revelation, you read how the Antichrist, excuse me, and the false prophet are going to come. And the false prophet gets the people to worship the image of the beast. And what is the image of the beast? Is it a clone? Is it artificial reality? Is it a hologram? There are so many verses in Revelation that could easily lend itself to technology. So to me, the unprecedented technology is the biggest slam dunk of proof. And then, of course, there's many other proofs.
Wow, that is so powerful, the thought of that. And it's so interesting. What are your guys' thoughts in relationship to that? Is the course of action for somebody who truly loves Jesus, and I could get really extreme about this, but I mean like all out, no matter what it is, 100% in, fully known believer, is the course for them that you believe God would call them into, the course to take territory in the technological space, in the sense of make sure that people can still hear God's voice coming through these massive machines, which are, you know, broadcast media or social media or search engines? Or is the course to withdraw and stay completely out of it and kind of say that's the devil's territory, we're not touching it?
If you don't mind, this is really something that burns in me like a fire. The worst course of action, humanly or godly possible, that Christians could do would to become like Luddites or Luddites or whatever, and retreat from technology. That's the absolute most catastrophic mistake Christians could make, because that is the central battlefield. The central battlefield, of course, is spiritual, but in our world, the physical battlefield is technological. So Christians need to be on the cutting edge in leadership. They need to be 10, 20 years ahead of society and the tech giants. I know Troy and I have talked about this, but absolutely not. They should not. Anyone who tries to escape technology, it really, I don't want to be unkind, but it's so absurd. It's an act of madness.
I think that's a completely accurate statement, and I watch people be completely unbiased. Journalists are supposed to be completely unbiased. I want to let you know I never came from any journalism school, and I am not unbiased, and I'm not afraid to say exactly that we absolutely, completely, totally, utterly could not agree with what Paul just said more. I want to tell you that when we say God in action and we say God is calling you to become the story, that is precisely what we're talking about. We want to lift you up and bring you in, because right now, the amount to which we each step in and stand in this battle is the amount to which there is a remnant and a restraining force, rather than an absolute tank running over the people. So depending on which side, you know, if you like the version where we just get run over with the tank and get it over with, then I understand, I can't argue with that. But outside of that version, we're urging you to take this as a battle cry, not just like something you heard, but get involved. Talk to me about like Illuminati, for example. I know you guys have interviewed Illuminati. I know that's a topic a lot of people want to know about. You know, is Jay-Z really in the Illuminati? Is there a real Illuminati? Is it a celebrity thing he's just doing for attention to pretend like he is? You know, and I'm not asking specifically if you know about Jay-Z. If you do, great. I'm just saying, give us a sense of what you've found out, what you've learned about the Illuminati.
Well, the Illuminati is an actual historical secret society. It was formed in the late 1700s by Adam Weishaupt, who was a professor at the University of Ingolstadt. in Germany, and involved some of the princes and literati, and it was a fashionable secret society. In fact, my ancestor Friedrich von Schiller, the poet that wrote Ode to Joy that Beethoven set to music in the Ninth Symphony, all his friends were members of the Bavarian Illuminati in the late 1700s. And so as we did research for the Babylon Code and Trumpocalypse, over 150 interviews over the last 6-7 years, I interviewed a number of former members of the Illuminati, and they said that it's still in existence today. They were part of it, and they say they believe that they're now in sort of the final stage of their long-term plan to move us into this global system, a world socialist government, the New World Order, whatever you want to call it, and so. A lot of this information is detailed in the Babylon Code and Trumpocalypse, and they say we're in this latter stage of their ultimate plan.
Wow, what I can't help but think about is the echo of hearing the guys from the Secret Service agencies in D.C. in meetings talk about that China has said that exact same thing. They're in the final stages of implementing their plan to replace America as a global superpower. And again, something like Paul mentioned, I would have said, oh, that's some crazy person's theory that blah, blah, blah. They're just paranoid. But hearing it from General so-and-so and Colonel so-and-so and NSA and CIA, and when you hear it from those kinds of people and they're giving you details about the ports that have been carved out to move in these battleships under the name of engineering all over the world, Gambia, Panama Canal, when you start hearing, again, the details in the same way that you just gave, it changes this context about our need to be alert and a need to be involved. What do you think of, in that same sort of context, the things you're covering in Babylon Code and Trumpocalypse, what do you think is the largest threat of those pieces, individual pieces, like individual Illuminati or individual, let's say, and how would you explain, let's start with this, how would you explain the deep state? How would you explain the reality of a deep state? Because I think that in and of itself, people go, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. There's no deep state. What do you mean deep state? And again, I'm trying to do this so that anybody watching who's never seen this can have a place to enter into this conversation.
Well, the greatest danger, and Troy and I deal with this in Trumpocalypse because it's playing out right now with this current administration. The greatest danger is the deep state, and the deep state is deeper than, let's say, government agencies or shadow government or rogue CIA, people or rogue FBI people. The deep state is deeper than that. Sorry for the cliched words there, but the deep state is far deeper than that, because the deep state really touches upon who are the people who control planet Earth and the United States and China and so on and so forth. And this is going to be a difficult hurdle for people who have a mental block. And I understand why they have a mental block, because I used to have the same mental block against this idea that there is a secretive global occult elite. And I'm talking specifically about the wealthiest people in the world, the international banking, the royal families, et cetera, who are, some of them are public, some of them are not well known to the public, but they essentially control planet Earth. Let's give a concrete example. When I first started writing books, and when Troy, I'm sure, started being a journalist, there were like 250 or 300 corporations that controlled all of the media. That's a lot of diverse corporations. Today, there's only 4 globalist corporations that control the vast majority of the mainstream media, just 4 globalist corporations. So you have a monolithic Orwellian thought police, and they give a very narrow bandwidth of information. So, for example, they will never do an investigative piece on the dangers of 5G technology. They will never do an investigative piece on the dangers of eating genetically modified food, GMOs, and on and on and on. And why is that? Because that would be a conflict of interest with their owners or their masters, the globalist elite. So where this all goes, and what Troy and I tried to do in the first book, The Babylon Code, we discovered a template or a code of a control system that began in ancient Babylon. And an illustration of that would be the debt slavery system, making people slaves through monetary instruments, debt slavery. This debt slavery system and this occult control system has been passed on from empire to empire to kingdom to kingdom. So we have now, with technology, if people would simply reframe their minds regarding technology, we use it, we need to participate in it, we need to be leaders in it, but technology's primary purpose right now is not to entertain us, not to give us news, not to show us episodic TVs, not to allow us to play games or whatever we're using social media, the internet, Wi-Fi and all that for. The central purpose of all media, whether it's internet or whatever, cell phone, is surveillance. It's a mass surveillance device that profiles billions of people. And the next step is total control. Now, that's not paranoia. That's simply borrowing from, the Nazis used technology that they had, which was index cards, a pen, and they filed them in shoe boxes. And they had a demonic control system, but all they had was shoe boxes and index cards. With the technology we have now, the inevitable result will be loss of freedoms and slavery. And that's what the Bible warns about. Isn't it interesting that the Bible talks about the mark of the beast, 666, and you can't get into the economics, you can't buy or sell unless you receive this technology, which I believe and Troy believes is some kind of biochip, nanochip, microchip implant.